Well, look, man, glad you guys came on. Moonshot, Johnny, Ethan. Let's hop into it and kind of get the story. We always ask everybody what their kind of background is and how they got into the mining space because it was a little weird, but actually not weird, just different. Oh, is that not my bad? But yeah, so kind of tell us what was your guys' journey? What was your background pre Moonshot?
Ethan, you want to kick off or you want me to go?
Yeah, sure. So my background. So I went to University of Texas, got my degree in mechanical engineering, minor in business, and then I graduated back in 2008. So I was there with Vince Young and the national championship.
The heyday.
So the heyday. Yeah. I get butterflies just thinking about that game. 4th and 7, and he busted out. It was awesome.
That was one of the best games I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think everybody remembers
No doubt.
That. Yeah, it was phenomenal.
And I'm from Missouri, so like I had no ties to any of them. I was like, that was one of the best games I've ever seen.
You were a powerhouse back then.
Oh yeah. It was nuts. I mean, I used to joke around that when I went to Texas, because I'd ask kids after I left, I'm like, do you go to the games? No, I don't go to all the games. They're like, really? It's like, man, there'd be like Indian foreign exchange students fresh off the boat, and I'd see them in the cafeteria, and they're like talking X's and O's, and they had knew nothing about American football prior to that, but just like the environment at UT back then was just nuts. So I graduated engineering. This was 2008. And then I was in oil and gas for 8 years.
Okay.
So production automation. So where
were we at? What, operators or midstream?
So we were mainly on the company was a distributor.
Mm.
So we sold valves, and I was on the RAS, remote automation systems. So basically we did plunger lift, gas lift. We did all the automation on the production side. And then we did, the metering and that kind of stuff on midstream. So I was there for 8 years. And then in 2020, that whole thing happened and everything got shut down. Business dropped off 75%.
Yeah.
And so I moved over to data centers at that point. And so I was doing building automation systems. So that's my background. I'll get into the story of Moonshot, I guess. But if Johnny wants to get
I'll give you my quick background on how I got into crypto. So graduated from Texas A&M with industrial distribution degree. It's an engineering department. It's like half business, half engineering. And one of my counselors was like, hey, you can kind of get into any industry you want with this degree. And they're like, if you want my opinion, like go on the electrical. Like electrical is never going away. So I took a job with Schneider Electric, massive manufacturer. And that's where I learned my electrical background. So I did all my training through them, started to learn codes and all that kind of stuff. And I just didn't want to work for a big manufacturer anymore.
Yeah.
And I took a job with a company called Sunbelt Transformer, which is now Sunbelt Solomon. They sell substations, pad mount transformers, like new and reconditioned. And they hired me to actually be their gear specialist. And I was like, all right, cool, let's do this. And I'll learn transformers at the same time. And then ironically enough, like my first few months on the job, like I got an inbound phone call from none other than Chad Harris.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Shout out to Chad.
We were just talking about him.
Yeah, we were literally just talking about
I love him to death. So I was like, he was like, yeah, I need 200 transformers. I need all this stuff. And I was like, what are you talking about? For crypto? What do you mean? So I ended up going to Rockdale and going to see the site.
I'm going to correct you real quick. For Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Not crypto. We're Bitcoin's different, okay?
Sorry. You're right. So anyways, went out there and he just like sold me on this industry and this path that there's this evolving industry and you guys all know Chad, like he's really smart and one of the best visionaries that I know. And so just like dressed him and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Ended up selling him tons of equipment and helped him develop that site. And then he started introducing me to the other folks. And so at that point I just like raised my hand and was like, hey, Sunbelt, you guys like let me just focus on crypto by itself? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I became the director of cryptocurrency market and grew it into a vertical channel, just like an oil and gas or, renewables or whatever.
Right.
Anyways, that's how I kind of got into the space. And since then, I bounced around to a few companies. I worked for a company called Shermco. They had an EPCM division that was like focused on just building the crypto data centers, right? And
Bitcoin.
I'm gonna correct it, I promise.
We're just gonna bleep it every time you say
yeah. We're building Bitcoin data centers, and so I got to learn how the sites actually got developed and having crews out in the field. So that was like a huge learning lesson. It was about in 2020, and then that's when things started. 2021 is when things started to fall apart. That's when I really learned like who's legit, who's not. Had like 4 or 5 lawsuits going on over there. So Shermco's owned by a private equity group, and they're like, man, we don't want to do this anymore. So ironically, at the time of doing those projects that I had guys in the field building them, there was Moonshot gear, and I had to get really acquainted with Ethan and his company on all the projects that we're doing. And I was like, hey, like I want to go back to the equipment side of things. You guys have got some great stuff going on, which we'll get into. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to take all my transformer, medium voltage switchgear knowledge, all my vendors, all my relationships, customers, all that kind of stuff, and then merge it with what Ethan was doing on the low voltage side. And here we are. So
nice. So tell us about kind of what do you got going on? Like if somebody's listening to our show and they're like, okay, what is Moonshot? What are we going to do? What's your pitch to them?
Sure. Well, I usually start with the story of how we even started Moonshot.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start with that. Yeah.
And that'll kind of lay it all out. So back in 2020, I was up late night and I was talking to some of my buddies. I think that was kind of the beginning of the bull run.
So I got in 2019, raised money in 2020. So same kind of time frame. We're actually old for the industry, apparently.
Yeah,
I was 2017. So
Oh, look at that. Yeah, you were way up. With all the Winston stuff. Sure. Yeah.
So it's kind of funny because in 2017, I bought a little bit of Bitcoin. And then I was thinking about building and at the time it would have been like these small little racks, right, to mine Bitcoin. And then the market tanked and I was like, forget about it. I'm going to go back and work my job. Well, in 2020, I'd just gotten laid off and Elon tweeted, buy Dogecoin. And I had some Bitcoin and I'm like, okay, now this is sacrilegious. I know I'm not allowed to talk about it, but I had to go through, you had to go through all these different exchanges to turn Bitcoin. I think I had to turn it into Ethereum, and then I could
get Doge,
go buy Doge off some shady, site. So I put $500 into Dogecoin, and within 3 months, it turned into $50,000.
Right.
And then I said, okay, well, what else is there? And so my friend's like, hey, there's Hoj. I was like, all right, I'll buy Hoj. Shout out to Hoj. I think Barstool Sports, they promote Hoj. But and then I was like, what else? I'll buy Poodle. I'm just going to buy dog coins. So,
dog coins.
So then I post on Reddit. I post, hey, look at my dog pack. And I took a screenshot of now that was probably a bad idea, probably open to scammers. But anyway, I posted it and someone goes, you need to add SHIB to your dog pack. And I go, okay. So I figure out how to go buy SHIB and I put $500 in SHIB. So between pretty much Dogecoin and SHIB, that portfolio went up to $175,000 by that summer. Okay. And I was like, holy crap, there's something to this.
I'm going to keep buying dog shit coins.
It was funny.
The rest of the world.
I was showing my wife, like every day I'd go up and be like $10,000 more, 20,000. I was like, this is nuts. And
I'm a genius.
I'm a genius. I mean, this was during the whole GameStop thing. Did you guys see the GameStop?
Dumb money. Oh,
Dumb money is great.
Yeah. I was like, that was like what I was experiencing. If I would have put $1,500 in, I would have made $1 million on SHIB. It was like a 25,000%.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
It was
You're
nuts.
just in your basement with your headband on every night, just like on Reddit.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. What's the dumb money guy's name? Something Kitty. What is it?
No, yes, man. Something Kitty though.
Yeah, something Kitty. Yeah. Like you could have been the dog version of that.
I could have been the dog version of that, but no, I didn't sell at the top. So, but anyway, so I was working at this company. We were doing building automation systems for, shout out to DivCon, by the way. So, but I was working there doing building automation systems for hyperscale data centers. And actually, Gideon's company at the time was called Hodl Ranch.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
They reached out and said, hey, can you build us some curtailment software? And so, I got wind of this and I'm like, how do we figure out how to do what we're doing with crypto or, Bitcoin? And then China had banned Bitcoin mining. And I just, something clicked in my head and I go, it's going to be a gold rush. And so when China banned Bitcoin, I'm like, okay, I want to mine Bitcoin. And so I was actually at a Starbucks one day and I saw this guy wearing a suit in the middle of July in Dallas. I'm like, why are you wearing a suit? And he goes, well, I'm a professional storyteller. And so we start talking. I'm like, so that means you must know people that can raise capital? Oh, yeah. So he hooked me up with one of his buddies and I pitched him on this idea to build a Bitcoin mining operation. And he's like, yeah, that's awesome. Like the numbers make sense. I mean, at the time, this was like, it was peaking,
insane,
right?
Yeah.
Numbers were insane. ROI was like 8 months.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And so he's like, okay, you got to put a deck together and I'll help you. And it's going to cost you X amount of money. So I paid him 3 billion SHIB. Don't tell the IRS. But
it sounds like a lot.
It sounds like a lot.
It
was still a lot of money. I mean, it was.
Yeah. You were a SHIB billionaire.
I was a SHIB billionaire. Yes. So I paid him 3 billion SHIB, which was worth thousands of dollars at the time. Now, granted, when I ended up paying him in 3 billion SHIB, and then it ended up like 20xing after I paid him, but he didn't sell at the top. I was like, dude. Anyway,
so now he's like, damn it, I should have cashed in my 3 billion SHIB.
He should have cashed in his 3 billion SHIB. So, he's like, you got to put a deck together. So now I'm doing market research, and I reach out to Compute North, and I said, hey, can I get 5 megawatts of power? And they said, yep, 5 cents all in. I was like, all in hosted? I'm like, that's a good deal. Give me a contract.
Man, some of those numbers we see now. It's like, sorry to interrupt. I'm like, man, nobody's hosting at 5 cents. Nobody.
No.
Yeah.
But maybe that's why. Anyway.
Right. That's yeah. You're lucky 7.5 probably lower end.
Yeah.
Right now, but.
Yeah. Hosted all in. I'm like, okay. So my goal was like, I'm going to get this contract and then I'm going to go raise capital against it. And so I end up talking to the guy and I'm like, hey, where's my contract? And like a week goes by, 2 weeks go by. And I'm like, where's my contract? He's like, well, we got the power, but we don't have the pods. And I was like, okay. I go, how many pods do you need? He goes, 1,000. I go, how much do you pay? He goes, $500K a pop, which isn't true, but I mean, it's still at least $250,000 a pop.
Right.
And I was like, you need 1,000 pods at $500,000. I was like, that's $500 million. And we were integrating our control systems into UPS pods for data centers. And so I knew some different fabricators that were building these. And so I said, I'll build your pods. And so I started.
Pod meaning, let's clarify.
Container.
Container, yeah. But not a container. We don't want to say container.
We don't want
container,
Or
that's
pod.
like.
Yeah. Container dumbs it down too much.
Container,
modular
that's like.
data center.
Yeah.
Yeah, modular data center, yeah. Container, that's a shipping container, modify. No, these are like actual buildings. So we and so anyway, so I reached out to some fabricators and we came up with a design. Found a guy that came up with the Moonshot logo because it was going to be Moonshot mining. I was like, crypto, right? And then I was like, that's got a good ring to it, Moonshot mining. And then I'm like, well, let's start Moonshot pods in the process. And so I went out and started posting on Telegram. I got a sketch, put it on Telegram, started quoting people. And then someone goes, my buddy Ben, shout out to Ben, but Ben reached out and said, hey, I got a guy that needs 2,800 amp panels. And he's like, they can be UL 508A. I go, I used to work in a UL 508A shop. I used to be inside sales. I can quote this. So I reached out to one of my suppliers, Gary, and I said, Gary, can I get these breakers? He said, yeah. I reached out to my old company. I said, can you build these in your shop? They said, yes. Guy comes back and he goes, okay, I need them in a week. So I figured out how much to expedite it. And I was like, okay, $287,000. I never met him in my life.
To get them in a week?
To get them in a week.
Wow.
2,800 amp panels. And that's probably actually not a bad price now.
No.
Pricing has gone up probably 50% since then. So anyway, I was like, yeah, that's what it's going to be. And so the next day he wires me the money. I never met him. maybe talked to him on the phone one time.
This is the wild.
I
Oh, yeah.
didn't.
No, dude, this is like a very common story.
Yeah. I
It's
didn't
so
have an
ridiculous.
LLC set up. I didn't have a business account set up.
Yeah.
I have $287,000 in my
You're
account.
just like,
I'm like,
Venmo me that,
Yeah,
please.
yeah,
Here's my-
People blindly do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crap. All right. I'm like pacing in my backyard, like, it's just going to happen. And then it happens. And I was like, okay, here we go. Now I got to deliver. And so I call up the company that I used to work at. And I was like, can you guys build these? And they go, yeah, it's too quick. I was like, crap. So I go, Gary, who else do you know? So he's like, well, I got this shop. And so I talked to him. I was like, here's what it is. Here's how much labor it's going to take. Can you do it? Yes. I was like, okay, cool. So we start shipping parts to the shop. I show up on Wednesday of that week. They're supposed to go out Friday. He has 3 guys working, 600 man-hour job. I'm like, you're not going to get it done. And I'm like, you have to have more people. Find someone. And he's like, I can't find anyone. And I'm like, all right. I call everyone. Can't find anyone. And then I'm just like, I got to find a way. I got to find a way. Finally, I'm like, who can wire stuff up 24/7? I was like, electricians. So I hired electricians, paid them $75 an hour, and we wired these in the parking lot, got them out in 1 week.
Wow.
That one customer we did $7 million with, right?
Dang.
Year one.
Really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jeez. Well done, guys.
So
That's good.
So year one, we did $12 million. We
Mhm.
built pods. We did full engineering, procurement, construction, where we did civil engineering, electrical engineering, one lines,
Mm.
built a building, built pods, everything, transformers, you name it.
Mhm.
And then I think last year we did 8 million because the market dipped a little
Yeah.
bit. And so far today, so in January of this year, we're 26 million. So we
What?
did, yeah,
26
You guys are
million
doing
in
26
January?
26
in
million in
January.
January.
Yeah.
So we're
Shit.
so lowball 50 mil. We should be like what is it?
Yeah.
The big, hairy, audacious goal is 100 mil.
Yeah.
But we just talked to a guy today, and he goes, he goes, yeah. How long you been in business? He goes, 2 years, and he said, yeah, we're $1 billion company
In 2 years?
in 2 years. Traditional
Uh,
data center space.
And they manufacture?
No, they're kind of like a channel partner to a lot of other
Uh-huh.
equipment.
They put things together. So
Yeah.
so we went from the crypto space, and we always thought, I mean, I always knew this was the path, right? Because they're not the crypto space, but the Bitcoin
Yeah.
space. But we went from Bitcoin mining to now we have a project with Google,
Mhm.
X. We landed a big project with Hut 8.
Mhm.
And so those guys out there, so that's a 200 megawatt project.
Mhm.
So that
That's where
project,
a lot of it came in.
Yeah.
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 so that project we're supplying all of the power distribution panels.
That's what I was going to ask. So are you just doing like where are you guys fitting in the whole scheme of, we locked down a site and we got it operational and running? Where's your kind of niche within that? Is it just a container?
No.
Okay.
So it's, if you go down, from, power distribution, right? You got the power plant, right? You got the utility voltage so we're providing substation transformers.
Okay.
So we have,
So you're working with the utilities on
Yeah, so
installing
like
those?
the way that you can envision Moonshot is like essentially they're taking my background in the medium to high voltage
Mhm.
space and then taking Ethan's expertise in the low voltage space.
Okay.
We're kind of merging those together. So like let's just say you're like, hey, I'm working with utility, I got 100 megawatts of power, right?
Mhm.
Well, I've got connections to where people have substations in stock. Just through my like, the
Mhm.
transformer industry is a very small space. So
Yeah.
I know where to find those pieces of equipment. And then just like low voltage equipment, you need breakers protecting things at a
Mhm.
high voltage, medium voltage, and low voltage level. So arguably going from the substation all the way down to like the pad mount transformers that
Right.
you see and the medium voltage switchgear, like I've got connections for all those. We're not
Okay.
manufacturing that because
Yeah.
that would be,
Yeah.
it's
I get
insane.
it.
Right? You don't do
There's
that.
very few manufacturers
Right.
of actual transformers.
Exactly.
Right.
And like
Yeah.
especially ones that can build things quickly right now.
Mhm.
So I kind of know the guys that
Yeah.
can build transformers quickly, medium voltage switchgear quickly, who has it in stock. Like
Mhm.
you kind of have to be like that when you work at a
Right.
company like Sunbelt. Like, Chad
Yeah.
was like, hey, thanks for giving me the transformer. Do you know where to go find this?
Yeah.
And then over time, I was like,
You got a network.
I just like figured it out, just like Ethan.
Right.
You just figure it out. You're like, I'll go find it for you.
Mhm.
Is that the
You know?
biggest part of the business, the transformers?
No.
Probably so we manufacture all the low voltage gear. So the UL 891 switchboards,
Mhm.
UL 508A panel boards, like that's like the big moneymaker for us. You know, we have an engineer, Andrew, who spent months designing rack systems, and then Michael came on afterwards to take it over. But that we're doing, 200 megawatts of racking,
Mhm.
custom racking with cable management built into it. So we did all of the engineering design. We actually, it's interesting. So the manufacturer that actually takes the raw steel and makes the beams,
Mhm.
like pallet beams, we are now distributors for them, but we have a custom design with them.
Okay.
And so it's in Dallas, like right
Yeah.
next to our shop, which is awesome.
Nice.
So
Do you guys have like any patents on anything in there, or
we have a patent pending
Mhm.
on the rack design.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
probably need to follow up with the
Yeah.
lawyers,
find
but
out what
don't steal their ideas.
No, not trying to. I'm just
No.
curious because like, there's a lot of groups out there that build data centers, right? I say a lot. There's not a lot. There's a few, right? But is there anything in particular that you think sets yours apart from those other ones? And that's why I was asking about patent. Like,
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of panel shops. Like, we are
Yeah.
not the first OEM panel shop,
Yeah.
right? But I think what makes us unique is that we can connect from the substation level all the way down the low voltage and everything in
Okay.
between, right?
Okay.
A lot of guys are like, hey, I'm only focused on the low voltage level,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And I think
I would agree. Most of them, that's kind of
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like they kind of have their niche.
Mhm.
And for us, we looked at
Mhm.
it as like we're competent in all
Yeah.
the areas, so we
Mhm.
don't shy away from going to help you in other areas that
Mhm.
someone comes in, they're like, I just don't know where to find this or that, or
Mhm.
I need help with engineering. Like, we're connected to all those things,
Mhm.
so we just help people connect the dots. And if we can, mark something up with a nominal fee by buying it from someone else and making
Yeah.
your life easier,
Right.
and then we sell you just medium voltage transformers and
Right.
switchgear, like, rock and roll, that's awesome.
Right.
Obviously, we'd want to sell you the stuff that we make because there's a higher margin in that, but
Yeah.
we're not like, oh,
You-
we have to be
right.
low voltage gear. And I think that's
Mhm.
what really makes
Mhm.
Moonshot unique. And it encompasses, the story that Ethan shared. And I think the story that not
Mhm.
only you guys probably have, but all the listeners of like everyone in this space has always had to like grind, figure
Mhm.
out how to make the best value or stand out or do something different. And I think that's our approach
Mhm.
is we want to be a value add channel partner for everything that's
Mhm.
involved in these projects and intimately understand like what it takes to get these up and running. Not
Mhm.
only both Ethan and I have been a part of, engineering and procurement, construction management to build these sites, but also building the equipment, sourcing all the stuff that you can't find. So
Yeah. What size do you guys focus on? Is there because there's some groups upstream data like they'll do containers and all that. Most are obviously off grid, but they'll do like 30 MCF a day. So
Right.
So you're talking I don't know what 30 kilowatts or something.
Right.
Like low small stuff all the way up to some bigger stuff. Are you guys kind of locked in on like a certain threshold or?
I'd say
Yeah, I think I would say really anything. I
Yeah.
mean, our approach is, and to Johnny's point, it's I want to provide more value than what we expect in return. Like in
Mhm.
the end, we'll be blessed because of it. But
Yeah.
but like it's especially in this space, people don't know anything.
Mm,
So
yeah.
we're not like if you to go to a typical OEM and say, hey, I need these panels, they're just gonna quote you what you ask for.
Right.
Whereas they come to us and we're like, well, what are you trying to accomplish? Like what
Mhm.
miners are you running? What's your
Mhm.
current what's your power on each miner? And so we're like looking at from the
Yeah.
design standpoint and we're
Mhm.
trying to help them and like, hey, by the way, have you done civil? Have you done, arc flash studies? Have you
Yeah.
done coordination studies? Like we're actually trying to help them think through it because in the end we want them to be successful and the little guys turn into the big guys.
Right.
So
Mhm.
we don't want to just shy away and say, no, you're too small. Like I want to help out everyone we possibly can. Now, like you know, when HUD 8 comes to us and says, hey, we want to do a 200 megawatt project, like, heck yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
And we'll put the resources together. But I think to add to Ethan's point, no size scares us, whether it's small or large. But I think what we do is we just pre-qualify the people well in advance, right? Like we can really determine who's a tire kicker, who's a guy that's just trying to look for the.
There's not a lot of tire kickers in this space.
Nah,
I'm joking.
But like, so if we can get through all of that and we can see, like, I quoted a guy today, like I quoted him 3 panel boards, some 12 PDUs that we make, and some like fuse disconnects, you know? And like, I was talking to that guy and he was really, really, really smart. And he was explaining his vision. I was like, all right, I'm going to help this guy. Right.
Yeah.
And he came to me with like exactly what Ethan had, where he was like, I need a fuse disconnect next to a panel board with a main. And I'm like, you actually don't need that main. That's what the fuse disconnect's for. So like, we can save you some money by not doing it. And he's like, oh dude, thanks so much.
So you let them kind of customize stuff a little bit.
We sit back and
is it like, made to order, I guess?
Yeah. What we do is we let them come to us and say, this is what we're trying to build. And then we go and we say what the Schneider Electric term was value engineering. So you look at it and you go, how about this? Like, we know the codes better than you do. We can save you some money. Like, you're like, who knows? Like, did your engineering group, if you had an engineer, which a lot of the times they don't, it's like some electrician that tells them what to do, and you're like, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Not all electricians are the same.
You know? Oh yeah, that's whole man.
It's like attorneys, man.
Yeah,
we're not all the same.
But then you get the opposite, where you have engineers that will over-engineer stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, how do we meet in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And so we like understand their budget and what they're trying to get at, and like how fast they're trying to build things. Because obviously, if you want to build it quick, you know, stock equipment costs more money. So we try and like teach them, you know, hey, if you bought this piece of gear out of stock right now, it's going to be X. But if you waited 6 to 8 weeks, we could manufacture ourselves and be a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
So we just kind of like go through options and things like that. But I'd say we don't care if you want to build
That's
4 megawatts or 400. Like,
that's super important, because I mean, especially when you think of like building these massive sites at scale,
Yeah.
like going back to like over engineering things, that could be like the difference between
massive, dude.
millions of dollars
Right.
potentially.
Oh, it's nuts. I mean, I moved a transformer 15 feet. The difference in cable and conduit cost was $250,000 for 4 transformers.
To rip all that stuff up, and
it's
you
crazy.
have to do
But
all
people don't think about it. They don't know, you know. And then you go talk to, you know, and even engineers. You know, you get an engineer, and they're just going to design what they know, and they're not worried about supply chain. They may not be worried about costs. They're like, this is the template that I have on how to do these systems, you know. And it's like, come to us. Let's work with and we like working with the. If you have an engineer, like, let's work together.
Yeah.
And help.
So you guys are in on the design phase.
Oh
and
yeah. We do a lot of design work. Oh, in fact, like, it was really fun, the HUD 8 project. I know all the USBTC guys really well. Shout out to them and Asher and all those guys. But anyways, like,
Asher, new boss man over there.
He's,
Huh?
he's a man.
Yeah.
I love Asher. Like, I was working with their engineers and their core guys, Jake Palmer and Tim. Like, it was just kind of like a fun, open discussion. They're like, like, we went from, let's just put a panel board next to the rack, to, why don't we integrate that panel board into the rack, because we're going to custom build it, and we actually have panels that are going to have, you know, racks.
I think we have the smallest 800 amp panel in the history of 800 amp panels.
Really?
20 inches
Oh,
wide.
wow.
Normally those are like 20-inch wide cabinets,
Yeah.
but we like figured out the wire bending space and the rise so that we can extend the cabinet up taller.
Yeah.
But it saves them a ton of money,
Right.
because just that little bit of cable, because low voltage cable is the thickest.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it costs the most.
Yeah.
And if you just save like a couple feet, you're talking about labor install, you're talking about the cable itself, and the time it takes to, like, especially like, you know, bending and going through all the cable tray. So it's just so much easier. Just come up with a design with these guys and like, all right, put it in the rack, we'll drop this in. It's like rock and roll. Let's go.
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's we take this approach where we love collaborating with our clients, and if they have the right technical folks that can do that. But a lot of times they don't, and then we'll just do that for them, and that's a lot of the value that we provide too.
Are you guys doing much off-grid stuff, or has it primarily been on-grid?
No. Well,
Yeah, mainly on grid. I mean, it's electrical. I
Yeah.
mean, the biggest thing, and we can get into it. Your SCCR ratings probably are a lot. Your available fault current's a lot less from a genset. But I mean,
Yeah.
after the genset, I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's distribution panels, it's PDUs. So
That genset can be a bitch though, man.
Oh,
I like having done that much off grid.
and like making sure that gas is clean and making sure
Dude,
those
we were
things
talking
are
about that the
running.
last show we did, where just trying to balance a genset with like 3 arms on it, and it's a freaking nightmare sometimes with miners, because like the miners, they run
Yeah.
like this, and they'll kick you, they'll
Yeah,
knock one of the other ones out of
frequency
whack,
is
and
big,
it's yeah.
big deal.
I learned way too much about electricity when we were doing that. I was like, what?
There's so many
It's
things.
communicating with it's dirty electricity. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
How's that even work? I don't even
Yeah.
understand what that
I
means.
know.
yeah, you
man.
got to put harmonics.
Yeah, harmonic.
filters
Oh my
on
gosh,
there,
dude.
and-
Yeah.
What are so many things could go wrong in electrical? Like, what are the things that you guys? I don't know if y'all see any trends with people coming to you and the conversations that you have. Like, what are the things that people get wrong about the electrical side?
Everything.
Everything.
A ton.
I mean, I think this kind of goes back to like why UL and NEC. It's like the history of UL. It's been around since 1894,
Mm.
and basically it's Underwriters Laboratory. That's what UL stands for. So it's the insurance companies that were driving the standardization process. You have NEC
Yeah.
came shortly after, and that was due to like a lot of electrical fires that happened in the industry. And so they set these standards. And what I found is a lot of these Bitcoin mining operations, just the Wild West. And so they don't know anything about NEC. They're like, I'm in a rural area, so I don't have an
I
inspector.
don't have to do anything.
I don't have to do anything, right?
People hear I'm not getting inspected, so that means I don't have to follow the rules. And it's like, actually, you do.
The capital cost nowadays is so high that it's like you don't want to take the risk. You
No,
shut
man.
down immediately.
I ask
and,
people all
like,
the time. I'm like, okay, so what are you gonna do if this site burns down and
Right.
there's a person in there? Like,
yeah. What insurance is going to cover
insurance
this?
isn't
one
gonna
is-
cover.
right.
Like, oh no,
So-
I have insurance. I'm like, do
No,
you?
you
though?
don't.
You
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Because if you did, then you would be putting UL listed gears, which what we build,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so many issues like with people buying equipment from China
Mm-hmm.
or people trying to save money by bringing that equipment in, and then like unfortunately like the people that are buying that stuff, they're like, they see the price and they're like,
Mhm.
oh, might as well just buy that. Like,
Right. Right.
and then they go to install it, and then like the AHJ is just like, yep, we're not going to approve you because it's not UL listed. And people are
Mm.
like, what?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times that we've gotten calls from amp boxes, and they're like, oh yeah, we got shut down. And it's like, yeah, now you have to put
Yeah.
a fuse disconnect or a main breaker in a box outside of it so that it actually has the SCCR rating and it's UL listed before it goes in there. Now inside of the box, the inspector's like, look, man, good luck, but
Yeah.
like, hey, like at least you're protected, and we'll let people into this building.
Right.
You
I'm
know?
pretty sure it was you, Ethan. It was. I'm not gonna say who it was, and I'm not gonna say which year of Empower, but somebody else brought some equipment out. You saw it, came to the team, and said, "Please do not power that up because somebody will fucking die."
Oh yeah, dude.
Probably. Yeah,
Honestly, man.
it's nuts.
It's
And
crazy.
that's, people don't realize like
Mhm.
arc flash incidents like are deadly.
Yeah.
I sent you some videos. You can probably play them, but I mean, it's a bomb.
Yeah.
It is a bomb. And, we pulled off some stats. I think there's every day 5 to 10 arc flash incidents.
Really?
2,000 people a year are treated for burns. Kills people. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen videos where they're like, yeah, we had an arc flash incident. The guy ended up dying, and literally you
Jeez.
walk in, silhouette of the guy on the wall.
Are you
And that's how
serious?
nuts
Yeah,
it
you guys
is.
need to
Yeah.
watch these. We send you guys a bunch of videos on YouTube to pull up.
Ugh.
It's scary, man. Like,
Yeah.
it'll-
Man, I
young
could
young
tell-
Jamie, pull the videos
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I'm
but
on
get
my
Jamie.
iPhone.
Dude, there was one time I was this is a dumb story. This is what happens when you let lawyers play with electricity. Even though when I was a kid, man, me and my older brother, we used to freaking make some wild stuff with electricity and fireworks. It was bad mix, but we did a lot of cool stuff. But I was messing around with my pool, and I had thought I'd turn all the breakers off and all this. And I bumped something up on one of these big old bolts that had something wired in, and it blew me back like 3-4 feet. I saw all white. I couldn't see anything. It was loud. It was super loud. There's probably a
Yeah.
silhouette of me on the privacy fence behind me. It was it
Yeah.
scared the shit
Yeah,
out
they
of me.
say an arc flash is like hotter than the sun.
Okay, wasn't
It's
that
like 20,000
Hotter than the sun.
20,000
Yeah.
degrees C is an
Yeah.
arc flash.
What?
An arc flash is that just touching something that you're not supposed to touch?
It's
Or
like
is this
when-
like something blowing up
Yeah,
Blowing up.
because
Really?
you're close
Well,
to
you
it?
could touch it if you have
There's
two phases touch each other, right?
Yeah.
there's quite a bit of ways that an arc flash can happen. One is like, if let's just say an electrical contractor has some tools and they inadvertently touch,
Mhm.
between two hot phases or something like
Okay,
that.
that's
right?
what I felt like I did.
Yeah,
It's
that's exactly what you did.
freaking.
Yeah,
Literally, poof.
that happens, right?
Oh, I've had guys literally, they're literally out there on these Bitcoin sites and they're touching. You could touch one, okay, but if you
Ugh.
touch the second phase,
Yeah,
you're done.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's always
Gosh.
put one hand in your pocket. But
That's
really,
a good. I'm gonna
P-
remember that one.
PPE, arc flash
Mhm.
studies. Anyway,
That's the main one, right? When you hear about an arc flash, another real common one is having loose connections. Think about it. If there's a connection to piece of bus material to cable, and there's a little bit of space there, think about what's in between there. Air, which has molecules of hydrogen inside of it, right? And so, or
just sitting there
oxygen.
vibrating.
It's sitting there vibrating, and like over time, that can create enough friction to cause an arc, and if that causes an arc, it can bleed over something else and blow up, right?
I guess they're scaring the shit out of me. Right
I know.
now. That's
Well,
what they're
it's-
trying to do. aren't they?
Well, let's
This
just
sounds like a way more dangerous industry than
I
I thought
know,
it
my
was.
It is,
God.
man, and that's why we're trying to talk about how important it is to have dualistic gear. But like buildup of dust, on that equipment, not having a good connection. Animals, right? Like animals in the cold, they want to get into warm areas, right? They don't know electricity. Like it's like very common to have like a snake or a squirrel or something get in to the piece of equipment and they can fry.
Freaking squirrels,
Yeah,
man.
man. I'm serious.
Tree rats.
Oh yeah, I got a call one time from someone who was like, "Hey, I need to replace this substation." And I like looked at it and I was like, "Is that a squirrel on the top of
Just-
that bushing?" And like the whole bushing was cracked, and it was like, and the guy was like, "Yeah, there's a squirrel."
So,
I got a picture
so
on
is
my
it
phone.
is it still Wild Wild West with these guys like maintaining their own stuff? Because now I'm like terrified to like touch something. I think
Yeah,
I'm
You
gonna
should,
like-
man,
you
I
should
went
hire
in-
a professional to do that.
Yeah.
I went into a
Scary.
site and literally they had 4,000 amp gear. Luckily, they were curtailed, but the 4,000 amp gear was sitting in a pool of water.
What?
Yes.
See, this is some stuff. I'm like, who are these people doing this?
You can't see electricity, and
I
it's
know, but like,
so
there's
it's
like,
people are
that doesn't sound like a good idea. you
no,
know?
no. But like the
I
point
could
of
tell. I
this-
could tell you what's driving it, but I don't want to get
Economics is just trying to be cheap as possible, or what?
economics, and then where a lot of the stuff, the people funding it, where
Mm.
it originated, no
Yeah,
desire for safety,
right.
right? And so
okay.
that a lot of that's driving the industry.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, economics. I mean, you're trying to get your ROI, which is crazy. I mean, most businesses, it's like 5-year ROI.
Mhm.
Bitcoin, it's like, I need my ROI in 12
This year.
months or I'm not
Yeah.
doing it. Yeah.
And
Right.
you have to think about this, right? Like a lot of these guys nowadays, like getting capital is so much harder.
Yeah, right,
So it's
it
like
is.
a lot of these guys are bootstrapping or like
Mhm.
whatever, and like that money is so tight that they have to look at it going like, dude, I really want to get 2
Yeah.
megawatts up on instead of 1 if I
Yeah.
did it the right way. So I'm gonna do it, right?
But I mean, dropping a freaking transformer in a kiddie pool is probably not
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good
yeah.
idea.
Right, right.
You know?
But like there are guys that do that. But
Yeah.
if we're talking to the big guys like Queen Spark
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Riot and all those guys, like those guys, they don't mess around.
Right, right.
They're publicly traded. Like they
Yeah.
have to follow the rules. And like I'm glad that they are, but it makes it more difficult for the small to medium sized guys to get in when capital is just
Yeah,
harder
so
to
tight,
get.
man. So
Back
tight.
like
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, they're just throwing it at anybody. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
that's what's so crazy is those is like when I was raising money, it was like 2019, 2020, and it was really hard to get money. It was really hard. I mean, you guys know.
Yeah.
Then it was like 21 and 20, like early part of 22. People are throwing money at everything, right?
Yeah.
And then it shits the bed, and it's like you can't find money anywhere.
Yeah.
It's starting to come back again, but
Yeah.
Well, you have AI, which I think.
well,
you
that's what was going to be the next question.
Yeah.
But yeah, go. So, sorry, I jumped in there, but of like you guys said, you did 26 million in freaking January. How much of that is Bitcoin derived, and how much is AI derived? Have you seen a big? That's had to be a fairly significant
Yeah.
part of your growth,
Yeah.
I'd imagine.
I mean, probably 80% of it's Bitcoin because that
Mhm.
we're one of the only OEMs that are really
Yeah.
servicing this industry.
Yeah.
A lot of guys don't want to mess with it. I mean, it's high risk.
Right.
It's, you know, we've had many projects, you know, they start, they pay a deposit, and then, you know, the back 20 megawatts, they don't have enough money to pay you. And you're sitting there holding the bag essentially
Right. Yeah.
with all this equipment. You know,
Yeah.
it works out in the end, but a lot of OEMs don't want to mess with it. Plus it's price sensitive. So lower margin, you know, it's higher margin to sell traditional data centers. But we're seeing a lot of like AI interest, multiple requests. Like, I think we'll see that. It's just, you know, they're looking at projects in 2025.
Right.
So the Bitcoin stuff is much quicker. AI, like we're getting requests for it now.
Yeah.
I don't even think we've really truly seen it yet. Like
Yeah.
we're doing like some of this substation stuff that we're procuring. That's, I believe, for AI, and that's not even going to be out until 2025. I think is the schedule. So
yeah, I've just switched jobs actually, and I've been surprised at how much AI interest there's been, but I was curious to see like, what part of that is derived from AI versus Bitcoin. There's a lot of miners are trying to get online now. You want to get everything established now. Prior to having, you're probably not going to get operational before having at this point.
Yeah, probably.
But you know, being ready to kind of hopefully ride the wave up here at the end of the year.
It's also hard to. I was going to say it's hard to pinpoint. Like we get requests all the time where it's like, "Hey, this is for an enterprise data center or whatever," and we're like, we don't necessarily know because it's so NDA'd up and kept tight.
Yeah,
but you kind of assume you're like, gotta be for AI,
right?
Know, like,
right.
This is so big or whatever. Like, you might hear a little tidbit that you're not supposed to hear.
You know how I know the difference? Like, how I know what it's going to be is the footprint. Like that's almost the guarantee.
Yeah. So the footprint's always exponentially larger.
Oh my gosh!
And it's over-engineered to the max.
Yeah,
and that's what's. Oh man, that's such a good point to make. Actually, is like, it's so crazy to see how basic a crypto data center is. Comparatively to an AI data center, and we're all using the same computing power, but two people do completely different. And I'm like, this is what you get when you have a lot more money in the space, and it gets over-engineered comparatively to a group that's like us, that's bootstrapping stuff, putting it together, and they're actually getting to the core of like, you actually only need this. You don't need all this crazy stuff.
They're very different business models. Those two are, but it's like it's the same operation with just night and day business models,
right?
You know, it's crazy.
What you'll see probably is a lot of I mean, you start hearing it now as I'm doing Bitcoin and then I'm going to go get into AI.
Yeah,
and so you know you see people wanting to make that leap, you know, and you get the difference. Bitcoin's like a tier 1,
right?
And then you have like hyperscalers, like redundancy, backup, diesel gensets. You know, that's like your you got big concrete walls. You get your tier 4 data centers. AI is kind of in between, and it just depends on like, there's 2 different types of AI.
Yeah.
You know, some of it's like, you know, where you have to be 100% uptime, and some of it is like you don't. And that's going to be, those can be more similar to like Bitcoin mining sites. But that's where people, like when they don't do the engineering and they don't do the civil work, they don't have the electrical lines, like, you know, it's either your site's an asset or liability. One, it's like a safety issue because now you could kill someone. You know, you could have OSHA coming after you despite being out in the middle of nowhere. Like OSHA's going to come.
These things are too big and too much capital involved at this point for OSHA to not go check it out.
Oh yeah, it's going to happen. I think there's going to be something that drives the industry, and then everyone that has all these panels that, you know, that don't have SCCR, that's like one of our biggest sales points is SCCR rating, because you go buy stuff that is made in another country, and there's no way for it. They don't have you all there. So there's no way to put an SCCR rating, and NEC states that you have to have an SCCR rating greater than the available fault current on those panels, or available on those panels. And so otherwise you're violating code. Right. And so these guys are building these sites. Well, you're putting all this money into this. You have all this electrical infrastructure. And when you want to go turn over and go sell this to someone doing AI or convert it, like you can't. You're going to have to rip all that stuff out and do it again. And then by then it's going to cost you twice as much money because, you know, since I started this in 2021, the cost just the cost to build the equipment has doubled.
Has it really?
It has
Oh, yeah,
doubled.
man.
Yes.
It's
Is
crazy.
it raw materials or
Yeah,
is
it's
it labor? Is it
materials.
It's
both?
like
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of like all of it. It's hard to really
Yeah.
pinpoint it, right?
Well, COVID made all the
Yeah.
prices go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all the manufacturers, it's kind of like Siemens and ABB and Square D, they all get together and be like, okay, we're not going to reduce our price. So like ABB is going to be like, I'm not going to reduce my price unless Eaton reduces their price.
Mhm.
I'm not going to reduce my lead time. So like the big manufacturers, you can go buy the same gear from Eaton and ABB and Siemens and Square D. They're going to be 50 something weeks out. We can build stuff in like
Man.
4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
For some of the bigger gear, 20 weeks.
That
So
explains the 26 million right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that does.
Yeah,
That
we
does.
can. So
honestly.
we can do
Yeah.
it faster,
Speed.
speed.
Mhm.
So, but it's just like you got, your site should be an asset. You should be able to. It should be
Right.
worth something, even if you don't even mine an ounce of Bitcoin. You
Mhm.
build that electrical infrastructure.
Right.
Like you're paying all this money for miners, like
Mhm.
millions and millions of dollars, but yet you don't want to go invest in like electrical engineering, civil engineering,
Right.
and actually like UL listed equipment. It blows
Mhm.
my mind.
So let me ask you this. And okay, I've got a 5 megawatt site. I just secured, and I'm using this hypothetically. I wish I did, but I don't. Hypothetically, though, 5 megawatt site. I need to get it built out. I'm a small shop, a family office, right? What point do I call you guys and say, look, I need to get this built out. I'm not a civil engineer. I'm not a mechanical engineer. I'm not an engineer at all. Can you guys basically, do you do the drawings up from substation level to data center?
Yeah.
And basically then kind of, do you guys do like any EPC or anything like that?
Yeah.
So you do the
So-
build out?
Yeah, so I deal with that all the time
Mm-hmm.
actually. I'd say like as soon as you get your PPA signed, like we get calls like right at that point, right?
Mhm.
And really that's when I start to really feel people out and I'm like,
Mhm.
all right, have you done engineering drawings? No, I don't have that. Well, do you have anybody that's going to do it? No, we're in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
We don't have to do that. I'm like, okay. And then I like start to educate
Yeah.
them and I try and figure out like through that conversation, that's when I get to really understand. They'll be like, eventually you'll know, okay, I either don't have the money to do that or I do.
Yeah.
And then it's a coin flip of whether you can
Mhm.
convince them. But if let's just say they did have the money, right? And they want to do the engineering, we've got partners just through
Mhm.
working on various different sites and we know who's licensed where. And we've got like 3 or 4 different engineering groups, like that we're just going to say, hey, like
Yeah.
work with this guy, that guy, will,
Right.
throw us a, rep commission
Yeah,
or
yeah,
we'll, or if we want to like manage everything, then we'll
Yeah.
like mark up their stuff a little bit, but like
Okay.
we could do that
Yeah.
and help them work directly with those engineers. And then we would take like the information that those guys do and we would talk with them and
Mhm.
say, all right, well, they're really going to need X, Y, Z if they want to pull this off. And then we just start designing from there. And then
Okay.
we'll design custom gear or
Mhm.
just stuff that's like
Yeah.
really basic.
All
that
the,
we
all the
use.
way down to from the substation
Mhm.
Yeah.
to the switch gear to the pad mounts to the low
Yes, do
voltage
it all.
gear to the PDUs to the cables.
Mhm.
We'll do
Yeah.
it all.
Okay.
We don't build miners.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, anyway,
That
but-
not yet. All right.
We need some chips. If you can get us some chips,
Then you're good.
we actually our PDU engineer builds FPGA miners,
Okay, so
and so
this is potentially a real thing that you could do.
potentially if Intel is listening out there and they can get us some chips,
Mhm.
we can build miners. So
So
Guess you just buy Orodyne. I mean, if you're doing 26 million, I mean, boom,
Yeah.
problem solved.
from time frame of locking one down to getting it operational using you guys, what's a realistic time frame?
I mean, I'd say realistically on a smaller site,
Mhm.
you're looking at maybe 12 to 14 weeks.
To energization?
Yes.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Depending on how
Mhm.
complex like the engineering takes and
Yeah.
how fast,
Yeah.
like
Like how close you are to substation too, probably.
yeah, just like that, and just being like how challenging, like
Yeah.
how's
Yeah.
how's the actual property is
Right, the
graded,
land
like
situation,
all
right.
sorts of stuff. Like
No
that.
lease, no grease.
Yeah, exactly.
It's landman. We freaking run this industry.
Yeah, I'd say like it's quicker if you are going to go with a modularized container, or
Right, right.
modularized data center route, just because it's takes a lot of the
Yeah.
the guesswork
variables,
out. It's like,
right.
okay, here's this. I just got to put this there, transformer, and then do I need protection in between there?
Mhm.
And, you know, understanding a lot of times you get burned by the utility because you're trying to like figure out, like you talk to the owner and they're like, oh yeah, we have access to all this stuff. And I'm like,
Mhm.
do you though? Like,
Yeah.
or is that owned by the
Mhm.
utility company and like you own nothing and you actually
Yeah.
have to put equipment
Right.
from what the utility owns to you? And so like you got to collect a lot of data
Dude.
before you get to the
Yeah,
point of
yeah.
actually
That-
helping somebody.
Yeah.
So depending on how long that takes, but I'd
Mhm.
say if you had your shit together and I sat down with you, got it all, like we could probably get engineering done in like 2 to 3 weeks. And then once we have that and like we could build, I mean, we build just to put in perspective, like we can build panel boards depending on if we have stock for it. We can build panels in like 2 to 3 weeks.
Mhm.
And then if it's like custom build, like we could do it, 6 to 8 weeks. Now we're
Okay.
building like massive
Like
scale, like
switchboard,
building 500 and what is it, 500 and like 60,
80,
80 something for that HUD 8 project.
Yeah.
But we're gonna deliver all that stuff in like
20 weeks.
all of it.
Really?
Yeah.
16 to 20 weeks.
That's
Yeah, it's starting to
good.
ship in 16 weeks and the racks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make sure we're currently right now, and the HUD 8 team's been on like crushing it on top
Mhm.
of everything and making sure that everybody has what they need to
Yeah.
feel comfortable to build at this scale
That's good,
as quick
guys.
as it can. But yeah, man, like we can really get after it with the right
Mhm.
people. And if they're like really down to play ball, like, but a lot of times, like, you know, like the reason why we still are alive in this industry is because we're not going to do things to jeopardize the company. Like
Right.
we're not going to ship you anything
Yeah.
until we have this paid for in full, or we're
Yeah.
not going to start production until we at least have X, whatever we
Yeah.
agree upon. Right. And like those things like really hold up projects too.
Mhm.
Right. And so
Mhm.
it's like, you know, if you really got everything set and if you have the money like you say you do, and like
Mhm.
you really can agree to these terms, like we could crank a
Yeah.
project out and like I agree, like a 12, 14 week time
Nice.
frame.
That's
and
good. That's
yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see what else we got on here. Arc flash scares the shit out of me.
Oh yeah. dude.
Cause of arc flash. I'm keeping that for me.
SCCR rating would be a good topic. I know that
Yeah.
Ethan kind of touched
Yeah.
base on it, and
Yeah.
I think like understanding that, because that's like a huge thing that we bring up to people, and they're like, "What's that?" And then like, I'm like, "Man, I can't believe you." And that you want me to
Yeah.
hear? You
Yeah,
wanna
I
explain
can.
it?
I mean, I can cover. I mean, so that it really stems from the available fault current,
Hmm.
and that you need an engineer to calculate for you. That's part of the thing. Like these guys that are building these Bitcoin mining operations
Mhm.
is they don't have an engineer that's telling them what the available fault current is. So you're
Right.
automatically violating. I think it's what NEC section 110.10.
Hmm.
Which states that all electrical equipment has to have an SCCR rated listed on the outside of the panel, not the breakers inside of it.
Mhm.
People are like, oh, I got a 65 KSE breaker. No, every part inside of it needs to have an SCCR rating, which stands for short circuit current rating. Okay,
Mhm.
so basically that means that every component in that enclosure can withstand an arc flash or a
Okay.
short circuit.
Mhm.
And
So-
mind you, we had to go to UL. And they had
Yeah.
to come to our shop in order to
Yeah.
get a UL file to put a UL. This is a Moonshot
Yeah.
panel, and we can
Mhm.
slap a UL label on there. Like UL had to come out
And check it
and
out.
double check, triple check, test things, blow things
Yeah.
up to ensure that we're doing those things. And I think that's
Mhm.
an important thing to
Mhm.
note is
Yeah,
like,
that's
it's part of the process of what we've had to do to get to
Yeah.
where we're at. And you know, if it was easy, then everybody would have a
Right.
paint shop, and it's not.
Right.
And
No,
you got to
it's
really know
not-
what you're doing.
it's
Anyways,
not easy.
keep on going, Ethan.
yeah. UL. I mean, UL guy. They make us. That's part of the requirement is you have to have
Mhm.
SCCR. And so, these guys are getting these panels. They don't have it. They're out of compliance. And then you essentially have like a bomb with projectiles out there
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
you didn't do the testing. I mean, I talked to. We have an engineer with James Sorensen,
Mhm.
phenomenal guy, but he talks about levels of separation. Like when you talk about safety, like
Mhm.
when you're designing a site, you want to put the liability as far away from your operators as you possibly can. So you want to get away from the miner and you want to push that liability back on the utility.
Mhm.
Right. And so that's like SCCR ratings, that's doing coordination studies with the utility to make sure, you're not going to have any nuisance tripping. That's arc flash. So the arc flash study basically gives you a sticker that says you have to have this required PPE to even touch it. I mean,
Mhm.
you can go up to a breaker and you think like, oh, I'm just going up to a breaker like in your house. and you flip it, and that if there's something going on in there, like you can have an arc flash like in your face just by flipping a breaker.
Really?
And
Like at
people
my
don't
house?
realize it at your house.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Dude.
There's
Now-
usually
connections.
it happens at like 3:00 in the morning when I'm in
Right.
my boxers half asleep.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
I could be that could be me.
And I like
Yeah.
send my son to go do it. Like, dude, go
Yeah.
check that out.
Now the
Jeez.
the available fault current at your house
Yeah.
is probably not
Enough.
that high.
Okay,
right?
good.
But then, like even guys, if they don't do engineering, they'll spec out 3,000 kVA transformers. Well, you can. There's calculators. I think Eaton has one.
Yeah.
You can download,
Mhm.
and you can plug in the impedance and the
Mhm.
transformer, and it'll say, if you got 3,000 kVA, you're sitting above 80 KIC or KA, which is
Who's-
that
what?
that bus bumps up your available fault current. Well, that means all of your gear downstream of that has to be 80, maybe 100 KIC. Well,
Mhm.
the cost of your equipment then goes up and the lead time
Okay.
shoots out. But people don't think about it.
Yeah.
So then in order to mitigate, either you don't do it and you're out of compliance and now you have a liability, or you got to go add a bunch of copper to bring
Mhm.
that fault current down, or
Right,
you got to put
drive
fuse
your costs
disconnects,
up.
which drive your
Yeah.
costs up, right? But people are like, oh, 3,000 kVA, I could do more with it. Well,
Mm.
yeah, but it's going to cost you way more to install than you think. Maybe
Mhm.
cheaper just to put another 2,500
Yeah,
kVA
okay.
transformer out there
Yeah.
than all of your gear's
And all the
less,
stuff.
right?
Okay.
I know you're kind of like, what is 80K AIC? Right?
Yeah.
You know, like what we're talking about. So that essentially means that 80K AIC essentially stands for 80,000 amps
Mm.
that are available on that piece of equipment. Okay. So that means if a fault happens and that fault causes 80,000
It could
worth
handle
of
that.
amps, it can handle that and the breaker would not burn up, blow up,
Mhm.
and do all those things,
Mhm.
right? So what happens is if you don't do these coordination studies or these arc flash studies, and let's just say you put a 10 KIC rated breaker, which
Mhm.
is like the lowest that you can do, right? And an arc happens right next to it, but that arc, like let's just say it's a lightning strike, let's just
Mhm.
say whatever, the trench that you're digging through got cut and that, it crosses these
Yeah.
wires, right? But that fault that happens is like 25,000 amps.
Mhm.
It's gonna literally roll through the system, and the breaker's not even gonna catch it.
Yeah.
It's just gonna
it
start
can't-
catching on fire.
Yeah. Wow.
And so that's why the NEC and has these codes set in place.
Mhm.
They require some sort of professional engineer that takes all those things into consideration that you
Mhm.
talk about: impedance, voltages, how far away these things
Yeah.
are from substations. All those things play into how you rate something,
Mm.
and then you put in the right piece of equipment. So they like test worst case scenarios from a mathematical standpoint, and then they put in electrical equipment that automatically would make sure that's all
Okay.
protected. And so like the houses, like all these
Right.
buildings, like
They
they're
have
all
this in
they've
there.
all
Yeah.
been looked over by
Probably
an engineer.
10
Right.
10 KA SECR
Mhm.
rating.
Yeah, it's like
on
nothing
panels,
major,
like
Yeah.
This building,
yeah,
not
no
rated.
doubt.
Let me tell you.
No, most, we just bought a house and we went and we had an inspector go out, and it was, I got a kick out of it because he goes with the panels. He's like, yeah, these panels aren't in compliance. Says, is NEC 2017 that required, and that's why like these electricians, that's how I've been doing it my whole life.
Yeah.
Well, NEC 2017 came out, and as these states start adopting it, now you're out of compliance. So most homes that were built prior to 2017, they're all out of compliance because they
Oh,
don't
wow.
have. But if you go look at new construction, you'll see the SCCR rating, and you'll see an arc flash study and the
Mhm.
required PPE listed on every single panel that's built now.
Okay. When I was at J, there was incident. I think it was in North Dakota. You guys probably would know. I don't want to say the company's name.
Somebody blew up.
Somebody blew up, and
They kill him.
I think there was one incident that happened where somebody died. There was another one where the dude got burned up real bad.
And that was a big.
Exactly.
That was
You
a
know who I'm
Bitcoin
talking
mining
about? Was
site?
that an arc flash?
I don't know, because if I'm thinking about the same one, I
Mm.
think that were they doing nat gas, and were they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I couldn't ever get to the bottom of
Yeah.
it, whether
I
it was like
never did
some
either.
sort of
Yeah.
genset thing
Yeah.
or if it was an electrical fault. But
They
like,
were in the container.
yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
And the whole container burned. And
Right.
that guy got like severely
Yeah.
burned. I don't think he.
Yeah, he didn't die. There
think
was
it was
another one that
really
died that was an on-grid one. Now I don't remember if that was in North Dakota or Montana. I can't remember, but The one I think we're probably talking about the
I
same
think we
one.
are.
He got burned up real bad, but
Mhm.
yeah, he didn't die. But I don't know enough about that to know what it was,
Right.
but I'm just curiosity, I guess. Wonder
Yeah,
if
I
that's
mean, the
what it
only way
was.
you'd know is if like you got to look at that
Right.
electrical equipment, you can be like, oh yeah, you can clearly see like an arc.
If there's an
here.
imprint on
Yeah.
like that outline, like a silhouette, then it was an arc
man.
flash.
Yeah.
All right.
You want
Yeah,
to
it's-
know something crazy?
What?
You want to even know this?
What?
I got struck by lightning.
Did
As a,
you?
as a
No
ba-
way.
as a
I
baby.
did not know
Yeah,
that.
As a baby.
Dude.
as a baby, outside of a Luby's, my great grandmother was holding me. We walked out of it. It was a huge storm. It was here in Houston. Walked outside of the carport thing. Zap.
What?
Yeah, I can see sounds. It's crazy.
Did
You
you
can
get
see
I
sounds.
can see sounds.
That's
now,
awesome.
To this
Gosh.
day, you're like, you have superheroes? Superpowers?
Pretty much.
I'll have to tell you a story about what
Dang, that's
things I've seen. I've seen
crazy.
sounds sometimes, but I can't talk about it on the show. It's a whole different thing. So, but yeah, that's awesome. That's crazy. It
I
sucks.
forget that it happened because I was like an infant.
Was your grandma okay?
Yeah, she was okay.
Did
Did she get hit?
Yeah,
Was just-
she was holding me.
Yeah.
Did you get those lines on you, like the imprint
Spider
of
webs?
I was gonna say, can you
spider web?
feel like danger happening? Like,
There's a little spidey senses tingling.
Yeah. I didn't know that, man. That's
Yeah, it's
crazy.
wild. It's a wild story.
That is wild.
I remember
That's
back
crazy.
when I was like in my dating life, that would be like one of my fun facts that I
Yeah.
come out
I've been
swinging
struck
with.
by lightning, baby.
Yeah, if I could survive that, I
You
could.
met your grandma.
I could survive anything.
I know what a
Yeah,
tough
I know.
lady.
I know.
We
We
should
should
get
just
her
absorb it.
grandma
She didn't even
more.
say it. She's probably
After
just like,
that,
"Man,
she
whatever."
also not immediately after that, but like later in her life, she had open heart surgery, no anesthesia.
Oh my
Whoa.
God.
Open heart
What?
surgery with no anesthesia, awake.
They don't make them like that anymore. Dude.
No,
that
dude.
is a tough lady.
Could you imagine
Oh my
having
gosh.
your chest
Dude,
and your heart?
I would
cut
just
open?
tell them to kill me. I would be like,
There was
"Nah, I'm
something
done."
to where if she had the anesthesia, she would guaranteed like wouldn't survive.
Wow.
Dang.
So
Jeez, man.
I don't want to test it, but maybe that came from the lightning strike.
Possibly.
That resilience.
Man,
It
that's
is,
pretty
dude.
crazy, dude.
That's crazy.
It is.
I blew up my knee and I was crying. So
Oh, when I hurt my knee ice skating, which that alone makes me embarrassed to tell the story, but yeah, I was on the verge of tears the whole time. It was bad, and I was a 42-year-old person.
that was recent.
It's like 2 months ago. But yeah. Well, shoot, man. Look, this has been really good. Really informative.
This is the first time we've really dove into the electrical side. This is
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did not know a lot of this stuff. Honestly, I'll be honest, I didn't know a ton about you guys. But we should talk some more after this is over. So
Yeah, love to.
yeah, it's impressive, and shoot, 26 million in a month is not a bad deal. So shoot, I'm gonna know where to hit.
You guys are
somebody
doing
up.
something right.
Yeah.
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 We've built a reputation for a while, and when you do that and you know
Mhm.
what you're doing, like people trust you, and
Yeah.
we're very fortunate to have that opportunity right now. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, just it's the way I look at it. You're a steward of other people's money, and if you steward their money well, they'll
Mhm.
keep trusting you to give you
Yeah,
more
that's
money,
right.
and that's really what it comes down to. So it's like, bottom line, like we treat our vendors great,
Mhm.
and like there are like our vendors are our partners, and then our clients, like we want to look at them like we're actually like we want them to look at us like we're part of their
Yeah.
company. Like we're
Mhm.
internal. Like you should look at us as a resource to help you
Mhm.
hit your goals and get you where you want to go. So
What I love is like I think what we're witnessing on a macro level is like I think there's still a lot of like Wild Wild West. There's still a lot of gray area, but
Yeah.
it's like this maturation of the phase where things are becoming more institutional,
Right.
more
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
legit and safer
Totally.
and certified, and
Totally.
it's just really cool.
yeah, I wasn't alive for when like oil and gas was kind of going through this same phase, but I definitely, obviously we all agree that there's a lot of correlations from
Yeah.
an industry perspective, and I think like a lot like in 2021 all that stuff was going down, like you started to see a lot like a cleanup of a lot of the like
Oh
big
yeah,
group.
man. You
And,
shake them
like,
out.
and it's just gonna keep on cycling
Mhm.
it, and then like the big groups that we all know, they're all gonna be buying up those assets and things like that, and it's there's gonna be Shells and Exxons and stuff like that, and we're fortunate to like have done work with the Shells and Exxons early on to
Mhm.
where we can kind of get those big projects and stuff like that. So again, it's a really unique space, and
It's still early.
Still
Yeah.
early. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is
we're
especially
early.
especially with AI.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
the data center space, like we're at the beginning
Yeah,
of the
I know.
exponential curve.
Yeah.
Like
I know.
I agree.
it's gonna be nuts.
You guys will hit the 100 million soon, so we'll get you on in 4 months when you
Shoot.
hit it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It might be.
Before
pop
the
bottles.
summer.
We'll come in more than with just hats and stickers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, you did 26 million. I got a hat. Thanks, though. I appreciate it. I like that. Man.
Yeah, for sure.
I knew they were doing well when you got the rubber
Yeah.
badges on it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else can have to step the game up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, everybody.
Just the
So,
regular embroidered. We don't give those. That was back in the $8 million.
that was $8 million, right? Well, man, this is great.
Yeah, thank you guys so
I'm
much.
excited for you, and I'm a little jealous, but excited for you as well. It was really good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, we should talk some more after this is over, see what we can do together.
100%.
Yeah, let's do it.
Happy to help.